I'm just going to switch on the live on Facebook also before I start speaking. So, hello and welcome to Words Change Worlds. This is a session that's been specially put together for the International Festival of Consent. I'm Jenny Wilson. I'm one of the producers of the Festival of Consent, which runs from the 16th to the 30th of November 2020. Lots of online sessions for you to take part in. That'll be my email making a binging noise, which I'm going to switch off. There we go. So that won't keep interrupting us. So we are live on the Facebook IDoConsent page, which is the page for the festival and the International Day of Consent. And we're live on the Upwording page because this session is run by Upwording, whose founder, Rivca Rubin, is here with me. And just to put it in the context of the Consent Festival, this for me, Upwording for me, I've been doing for a year or so with Rivca, is a way of using language to be more consensual with myself and with the people that I communicate with. And that's been incredibly beneficial for me personally, because I've learned a lot about how I talk to myself in my own head. And that's probably one of the most useful things that Upwording's done for me, is I speak more kindly and more consensually to myself in my own head. But I won't say too much more about that now. I'll just hand over to Rivca Rubin, who's going to introduce the session for us. Hello, Rivca.
Hi, and thank you. And what I would like to do is for the two of you here with me today and those of you who are on Facebook, is see this as a very interactive session. Interactive might mean that you are just thinking when questions are asked by me. Maybe you might make some notes. Do feel free to respond, even if nobody can hear you. And certainly here in the I feel it's like a studio with me. There'll be moments where I would like to invite you both to respond. I'm going to be attempting to present this introduction to Upwording as thorough as possible. And I've given myself permission to let go of trying to do it perfectly. So not everything will be in it, there's always more. And I like to endeavor to do this in an hour, so we have half an hour for Q&A. And I think, Jenny, you are going to be collecting in that half an hour and up to it particular questions. So what I would like everybody to do is to be fully present to the presentation and create the questions after the presentation. And we've got one more joining us here right now. Okay, so Words Change Worlds, as you've said, Jenny. Upwording is the name of this practice, and it is about evolutionizing thinking through everyday use of language. The point is to co-create a desirable world for all. Right. The starting point for me is this quote by Einstein, which is that we cannot solve a problem with the same kind of thinking that created it. Example would be if we would like to have less traffic in town, it's not going to be solved by building more roads. It requires a different kind of thinking, i.e. what we're beginning to see now is more pedestrian, making cycling desirable, safe and enjoyable, and so on. And I would say it's the same with thinking and language. We're not going to be shifting systems, whatever systems may come to mind, as I say, with the same thinking that has created the systems in the first place. So Upwording came about really as a practice in 2016, so only 4 years ago. And actually nothing that I will present here, I would say, is anything you don't already know. We know, we may just not be using it yet as much. Some of those things that we know because we're used to a particular way of communicating with ourselves and each other. And the work I've been involved in, which is assisting people in their own rigorous thinking to come to solutions. As a coach, I work as a mediator in conflict, work with teams and organizations to create workplaces in which people love to be in and feel safe and free and trusted. All of that has led to really a gathering of what we know is either limiting or liberating in language, maybe either motivating or demotivating into action, or is somewhere helpful or not helpful. So that's really what became clear in 2016. And then I think it was particularly for me prompted by noticing a few statements that seemed to be where we seem to be contradicting ourselves. So for instance, I read in a self-help lifestyle book around liberating yourself. This is a quote: "To truly be in charge of your life and stop doing what others tell you to do, you must follow this 7-step program." So just notice the contradiction in there. Or we might in one sentence say, "Now don't tell me what to do. Now do as you're told or go to your room." Or it might be things like why you should stop giving advice. Maybe on the more subtle one. So, right. So what I'd like to do is actually demonstrate this in terms of what is motivating and not motivating. And I'd invite you to engage with this next about 50 minutes, no, the next, let's say about 20 minutes, just from a position of you as a receiver of communication. So I'd invite you just to be you in terms of receiving communication. We will move that around later on, but for now that. So my question to you, and this will be a bit participatory, is how do you not like being spoken to? How do you not like people speaking to you? And do feel free just to take a few seconds to make some notes. And then just please shout out 1-worders, 2-worders, some examples. Those of you who are here with me. Yes, Jenny.
I was just going to say, just to clarify for the people who are in the Zoom chat, please do unmute yourselves and do respond to the invitations that Rivca is offering to answer her questions now. And in answer to your question, Rivca, when someone talks like me like that, I don't want to listen. I just want to go away from them.
Yeah, so that would be then already the response. So thank you. What is it that how do you not like people speaking to you?
In a condescending fashion.
Say that a little bit closer to the mic.
In a condescending manner.
In a condescending manner. And just notice if that's come up for you. Okay, so condescending, how else?
Ordering,
being ordered, okay? When people order you. And any others that spring to mind that you don't like? You might tolerate it, but you don't like it, or you really hate it.
When the people is extra nice, like beep, 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 beep. I don't like that.
It's quite interesting that's come up recently, when there's something extra nice. So maybe, is it something that feels dishonest or?
Yes, or like you're a little bit stupid or something.
Or you, okay. Great. Well, those three will do. So actually, interesting enough, the first two, I mean, condescending, patronized, are very close. Interesting enough at the moment, for this last year, is the first one that has come up so far with every group that I've worked with just over the last few months, whether it's come up as patronized or condescending, and being told what to do, being ordered what to do or commanded, and then aggressively comes up quite a bit. And just notice if any of these others are on your list or in your mind. Being interrogated, judgmentally, being accused or blamed, disrespectfully, being insulted, criticized, competitively. I'm noticing some nodding there. Spitefully, we've got another one. Spoken down to. Some people call it being belittled or dismissively or ignored. And please do in your mind add any others. And just for tomorrow coming in, and I think now we'll just stop letting people in if that's all right. And also something that I wanted to add, really, the whole context of this, just to be clear, is there is an increasing conversation around shifting systems of hierarchy, shifting systems of authoritarian and superiority. And for hierarchical structures and superiority and authoritarianism to actually work, it requires means. And the means are not only physical force, the means are also means through language. So if we just put that little bit of an umbrella around. And Tamara, thanks for joining. The question was, how do you not like being spoken to? So we've just started the presentation, and what's come up is these.
Thank you.
Okay, please unmute yourself, and there'll be moments when I'll invite you to join, unless you've got disturbing noises in the background. It's quite nice to hear you all breathe and react and things. And people have said, and all of these are somewhere underpinned by as if you're stupid, which is what you were saying, Raquel, wrong or incapable. So there's an implication of stupidity or wrongness or incapability of these. Okay. How do you tend to respond when people speak to you like that? And just notice if you recognize any of these, yourself in any of these faces. And there may be more depending on context, whether it is at work or it is home or in a relationship. How do you tend to respond?
Which is the one in the center, like ignoring?
Okay, so that's the kind of the resistance one. So just notice, do you tend to rebel? Don't tell me who I am. Don't tell me what to do. Now that you've given me that command, I'm definitely not going to do it. I was quite happy to do it before, but that's the end of that. It's just not going to happen. Yeah, or who are you to? So it's a real strong rebellion. Or the one in the middle, Raquel, is we might resist. We might do it, having been told what to do, being commanded. We'll do it slower, a little later. We might say, yeah, you can have the report on Friday. It'll be there on Monday. Or certainly with less joy. Yeah, less energy. It'll lose something. That's the kind of resistance. Or I'd say, well, actually, I wouldn't have done it if you wouldn't. Yeah. Or the third one would be, we might resign. We might tend to resign. And just notice where you tend to hang out more. Okay. The resigning is, yes, I will do it because actually the consequences of speaking up or against what I'm hearing or saying anything may be too great. There may be fear of a consequence, whether that's at work or at home, or I might actually believe that what is said to me, the blame that somebody's just given me, it's my fault, is really my fault. And just watch that space. It can be very, very erosive. How come we tend to rebel, resist, or resign? There are a number of basic human needs at play. I want to bring these three into it, not to exclusion of others. Just it seems that there is something about these, which is generally often people say when we're told what to do, commanded, it threatens our sense of freedom. autonomy and choice, and it feels shackled. Somebody's taking the freedom away, which is quite often there's the rebellion. Or it might be that because somebody's putting themselves in a position above us, a position of superiority, permanently or at that moment temporarily, it threatens a sense of equality. And therefore there might be resistance. I'll do it, but it'll be slower or later or with less energy or less care. Yeah, that's because the equality is threatened. Or I give in, I resign, because actually my sense of safety is threatened and it is too dangerous to do or say something about it. So what I will do is I'll protect, I'll go with it. Does that make some sense? Okay. What I've done is broken down these areas roughly into 5, okay? It's a rough idea, but here we go. So the order, being ordered what to do, comes as being told what to do, dictated to, commanded to, or demanded of. And the words that go with that, and please feel free, of course, to add any others that you've heard and also in your own language, would be you have to, you must, you need to do this or that, you've got to do it or do it right now. And just notice as I'm saying that or as you're reading them, how you're responding. Some of them maybe less problematic, others much more problematic. It's a personal thing. And of course, in your own language, it'll sound different too. Second area, another area is around being judged, the judgment, being a value being put upon, being told who you are or what you are not by someone else, or even being told what you feel like right now, what you're feeling, what you're thinking. Oh, I know what you're thinking. Can see some smiles there. Being compared or being judged in some way based on generally a sense of a right or wrong. I know what's right or wrong and I can judge you. Okay, and examples might be, yeah, well, you are the kind of person who would say that. Or I know what you're thinking at the moment. Or, well, you're just not good at that kind of thing. Or you're not as good as someone else, or just blatantly you're wrong, whether said or implied. Oh God, that's terrible. What a poor piece of work. Yeah. And just again, notice, where does a person put themselves, and you'll have loads and loads of examples of that. A third area, and again, it's judgment, is where we started. It was the condescending that you mentioned, Steve, being spoken down to, possibly belittled, patronized. Some people have added recently being laughed at, being dismissed or ignored. There are plenty of examples. Here's some. It's obvious what you should do. That's that sort of implication of stupidity. It's really obvious what you should do. Now, if I were you, I would. And again, notice, how do you tend to respond to that one? How ridiculous. Or, well, you would say that, wouldn't you? Okay, some of them a bit more subtle, some really obvious. Again, notice how you're responding. It's a very personal thing. And the fourth one, I've put under being judged, and it's quite manipulative as well, this one, which is being blamed. Maybe you're being told off. It feels like you're being blamed, maybe even shamed about something or into something, being accused. Interrogated is an interesting one as well, and some form of threatened. And maybe the threat can actually come not only through a potential punishment or an implied taking away of something, but it might even be about a reward. If you will do what I say, you will be rewarded. As in, if you don't, you will not be. So examples here are, why would you do that? Why did you do that? And notice already that implication of wrongness. And generally it does not inspire much of a, oh, right, I'll just share with you why I did that. It'll be more of a justificatory response. Well, I did it because, or we might even go, well, it's none of your business. you know, don't us, so that ends that conversation. Or quite simply, what you did was wrong, or the blame, you made me feel really frustrated, you made me lose my temper, and if you don't do that, I won't be taking you with me, or well, actually I'm just cancelling. Or with a child, you're grounded, go to your room, or I will reward you for your good behavior. So those are sort of 5 areas really, I think, into which we can collapse most of these things that don't seem to be particularly motivating into action or inviting into conversation about something. I'm going to look into 4, and in particular the first one. It's also the easiest one actually to notice from what people have said and to do something with pretty immediately. So the first one is the have to, the demand. And just to remember, what were the other words around have to? I'm asking. This is your participatory moment.
You must.
Must. And any others?
Will do. By 4
You
o'clock.
will do, yeah. Any more?
Do.
Just
No?
do it. Yeah, exactly. There's an exclamation mark, not a question mark. And interesting enough, this one as well, it feels more subtle, it feels softer. Even the words sound softer in English. You need to do that. It's still the same thing. It is a demand, it is a command, and it's got a particular kind of pressure to it as well. Because if you don't do it, there will be definitely some consequence because it needs to be done. So just notice how that need to acts out. And we use it a lot because also the word need is then akin to our basic human needs. And that's where it gets a bit more difficult. So we really kind of feel, yeah, you need to, oh, well, maybe I need to, maybe it is a need. Yeah, I think it's probably a more complex one. Here are some examples that people have come up with over the last sort of 3 years in sessions. Just notice if there's any that particularly speak to you or you can add to. So you really need to go and sleep earlier. You've got to drink more water. That's my own example with my children. Didn't go down too well, or with any of my friends who are present here actually today. It seems to be inspiring the opposite, I've noticed. You've got to go and do your homework, yeah. Spend more, spend less. Definitely be more social, watch less Netflix, read more. You need to go to that meeting. You've got to take the bins out and you definitely have to pay the bills. Stop smoking, etc., etc. So you'll know the ones that you hear from others on a regular basis, maybe a daily basis. Maybe you need to pick up the phone or pick up the kids from school. Okay, so just notice, and all of those I would invite you to go, how motivated do I feel? How excited am I about it? How much do I take it on? How much do I take? Okay, Jenny, you're doing, not really, okay. And somebody recently said that with all these things we have to do and being told we have to do, and now preferably, and yesterday, and there's often a time thing involved, it feels to them as if it's like sort of quite incarcerated by all this stuff and a lot of pressure and often stress. And recently I've picked up an increasing number of conversations, not only at work, also at home, but in particular at work, where people have gone, you know what, I'm realizing we've got quite a stress competition going on here. There's all these things I have to do. I've got to go to this meeting and that. And interesting enough, it seems to have just during COVID at the moment gone up. All these, we're running from one meeting to another. We're sharing that with others. I'm so busy. I'm so busy, and busy equates with being of value, being important, having a purpose. I am busy. And the way I can demonstrate busy to another person, to you, is going, I'm really stressed. There's all these things I have to and need to do. And oh, so I need to pick up the phone now as well. And the next person goes, yeah, I know what you mean. It's hard. And you know what? All of that you've just said, and I've got a sick parent at the moment, and the dog needs to go to the vet. And I don't know. burnt my foot or something. So we tend to sort of up it. There seems to be this like competition of who is most stressed. And at the same time, we're talking about health and well-being and work-life balance and slowing down and breathing more. And I'm not sure how we, manage to do that unless we shift that thinking around that. So if you want more stress, up on the have-tos. I've given should a special place. There's something, I'd say, more insidious going around the should. So what are you noticing is different around should in comparison to must? Question.
It sort of implies there's some form of choice with should rather than must.
Exactly. There is some form of choice. Yeah, interesting. And people are bringing that up at the moment. There is some form of choice. It's a hypothetical demand. Is there anything else about the should? Now, you really should do usually comes with more of or less of something. What you should do is, are you noticing anything else?
Yeah, should it's you have some kind of responsibility in that.
Yeah, it feels like some sort of like moral imperative.
Okay, yeah, we're discussing the word moral at the moment. Is it moralistic? And it does feel like, I've been taking that from what people have said. There's a moral imperative. There's something, that's what I mean by the insidious. It's a kind of a form of advice from a position of wherever you want to go with that, external above, the right way of doing things, the good way of doing things, the appropriate way of doing things that this person can dispense with. What you should do is, yeah. And interesting enough, often it is uninvited. And again, just notice how at the moment you personally tend to respond to uninvited advice, which comes often in the form of this. We've had earlier, well, it's obvious you should do A, B, and C. Can feel quite insulting because that person's just come up with that thinking like this. You've just shared something, an issue, you've probably not even asked for advice, maybe you just wanted to have a pair of ears, and they come up with a solution. Not even asking what you have already tried or done. Yeah, so that's a real interesting one about that implication of stupidity. The best thing to do would be, again, inviting self to solve your problem, even if you haven't asked me to solve a problem. There's something very, very seductive about problem solving. We've been, I think, really practiced into give me a problem, I can solve it. Yeah. And if I were you, I would. And again, notice, do you come back with going, well, you're not me? That's a real sort of rejection one. Or, oh, really? Well, is it okay? Because actually, I really believe you. I trust you. Maybe that's what I'm going to do then, because you would. Yeah, that would be the more resigning. I may even not listen to myself. I'm going to listen to you more. Okay, so I think it's a really problematic area. And like you said, it's got that kind of something moral imperative. One should do, as I say. And then there's another little voice that often comes in, which is just don't tell me what to do. I've quite purposefully had them drawn in that way. For anybody who's had that background, not everybody has, but you'll recognize it. And what happens when this advice, this uninvited advice, actually becomes invited? So question to you, do you ever ask for advice? Do you invite advice? Does it happen?
Yeah.
From who?
Friends, colleagues.
Any friends, any colleagues, or is there something about them?
They have to be highly trusted, in my opinion.
So it's people that you pick because you highly trust them. Yeah, or maybe there is something that you feel they know about that area.
So they have specialist knowledge that might be useful for me.
Exactly, and that might be reading books as well. So that sort of advice we also get from books, what we ask. So there's something you want to have advice from, you pick the people or the book, you go to them, you ask them, they give you advice. Do you take it? Always?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. And there was like, Raquel, you're going,
Sometimes.
Okay. Interesting enough, you're clear, we're asking for advice, you get the advice. This is where friends get really frustrated going, well, I've given you advice and you still don't do it. And if you've ever been in that position, especially if somebody gives you a whole story for 2 hours, then you give it to them and they give you the same story the week later and probably half a year later still. And then one day they'll take it on. Okay, so there's something going on there, which is, when do you take advice? Question.
I think I ask for advice when I'm uncertain of what I'm going to do. And it doesn't mean to say that I take the advice on, but hearing the advice seems to sometimes facilitate me reconfirming what I thought in the first place.
Right,
So
thank you.
An external sounding board.
It's an external sounding board, and the bit you were just saying, what I already knew. So it may be confirming something you already knew and weren't quite sure about, or it might be that I'm thinking this or that, and then the advice, that information from that friend goes, yeah, it's that one.
Yes.
So it can be a confirmatory thing.
Yes.
Yeah. What other conditions may there be for you to take the advice if it's not confirmatory?
When you feel like you've been mulling something over a lot yourself and just don't seem to be coming up with the answers, you just think, I don't know what else to do. Then I think that can be useful to speak to someone then, normally someone who you know well and trust.
But that's for you, yeah. And I invite you to go from the I. It will be for other people too, but that's what you find you might be mulling over. You got stuck, and then asking somebody else possibly to open that up. Okay, yeah. And it'll probably be those two. It'll be something around you already know and it's confirmatory, or there's something where I'm actually stuck, or I don't know what to do. I'm going to go for advice. Okay, and there's something that happens there, and it's probably the most contentious thing I'll say, but let's see. Is that I would say that when somebody in those moments, as Tamara, you've just said, I am stuck, and they come up with some advice, and it actually feels like a new piece. It's new, it's outside of that, what I've already come up with. And I recognize it, and I take that advice on. I would say that person who's given the advice to me of that piece has just committed theft. So my question to you is, what might they have just stolen from me? Or if, let's turn it round, if I give you that piece of advice and you go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And then you go and do it, you take it on, I feel I've just robbed you of something. What might I have robbed you of?
The option to find the solution yourself.
Yeah, the light bulb moment. And which is not, and please let's not mix up information with advice. The advice is what you should do. Information is, I've got some information to share you. I can even share my own experience. That's very different. But if I come up with an idea, and I'll just share that a bit with what I've noticed as a coach over the last, 25 years, is a person will take on a particular piece of advice or come up with a particular idea when they're ready, when the ground is fertile, and when there's something in the environment and the thinking that is prepared and ready to take it on, which is why often advice is rejected. You may share with your friend, well, what you should do is leave that person or stay with that person or think of it differently. And a year later, they do it because for that year up until then, they weren't ready yet. Or you weren't ready yet. Yeah. And I feel that when we give somebody advice and they're taking it on, you take it on, you were that close to working it out yourself. And that close might be 5 minutes, or it might be several weeks or months. And when we work it out ourselves, that moment of the light bulb, what's that like? That, that's what I'm going to do.
It feels great.
What kind of great, Jenny, is that for you, that great, when you work it out yourself?
Very conceptual moment. It's very sort of feel self-aware and self-confident in that moment, I think.
Which is really interesting. Yes, I would say confidence grows because I've just worked this out all by myself. That doesn't mean without other people assisting. It just means without other people solving the problem for me. There's a real sort of growing in, oh, I did that. I've worked it out. So I grow in self-confidence. And there's something else going on that moment of the epiphany or the aha moment or the penny dropping, the realization. What else are you noticing might be going on when you work it out all by yourself? It's your idea.
Well, I have a sense of a lot more ownership and a reminder that I have a lot of skill, knowledge and experience in my background that's enabled me to resolve something effectively. Yeah. So
yes, it's the ownership.
Yeah, I own the solution.
You own the solution, yes. And when we own the solution, there seems to be an extra bit of motivation. I came up with it, I own it, I feel proud of it, I feel chuffed. I could work it out all myself, and I feel that that energy that is released is like fuel. It will move the mountain. Will move the mountain much more than if any of you give me that incredibly good idea, because actually it's yours and it's great and I'll do it, but because I don't own it, it's a bit less motivating. There's less energy behind it. And also, who grows in confidence and wisdom? Because if you over there come up with the idea and I'll go, wow, you're really wise, you're amazing. So you as the giver of advice will grow, which is why it's so seductive. It's so seductive to solve other people's problems. Give me a problem, I'll solve it. Because I go home and go, do you know what? I'll tell my friend, I've just solved 3 people's problems today. Aren't I clever? So what happens is the person giving the advice is using their problem-solving muscle, and it gets more and more exercised. And the person who's actually asked for the advice is not exercising their problem-solving muscle. And I think in the world now, I wonder what would happen if we start really thinking people are smart enough to work out their own solution. Let's just stay with it a bit longer. And I'll show you in the last bit of the presentation what we could do instead in order to assist the thinking, but not take away the, there we go, back to the thing, this, for that not to happen. So I'm just going to go back. Here's the light bulb moment. I give you the advice and I've actually robbed you of your light bulb moment. Okay, so that's what I'm wondering if we can avoid, but assist each other. I'll move on. It's kind of my favorite area, really, and I think it's quite a complex one. Okay, third area, you make me feel, da, 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 or, well, actually, here are some examples. You make me feel really sad. You made me feel annoyed. You made me lose my temper. Oh, you made me feel so much better. You made me mad. God, you're making me feel crazy. You made me feel stronger. Yeah, so I'm using specifically, or you make me feel really happy. You made me feel really happy today. So what are you noticing here? What's going on in these statements? You make me furious. You made me lose my temper. What's happening?
You're not owning the emotion, but rather you're attributing that emotion as come from someone else. That's the cause and product of that thing.
Absolutely. Bang on, it's the cause. I'm not owning the emotion or the effect. You are the cause for my emotion. So therefore, where do I put responsibility for my emotion?
Outside.
Yourself.
On
the other person.
On the other person, yeah.
Making them feel something.
Yeah, I'm putting it on you. You made me feel, so it's your responsibility. So where's the possibility for change? How can change happen if you are responsible for my feeling or my action?
Well, it requires the other person to change, in theory.
and in practice, because that's generally how it's lived out. You made me lose my temper. It is for you to change your behavior, for me to stop losing my temper. I mean, I'm using quite hard examples sometimes specifically, just to notice also how by habit these things may fall out of our mouths, even though we don't realize. Yeah, you make me feel really confused. So therefore, you need to articulate yourself clearer for me not to be confused. So I'm putting responsibility for that change outside of me, which actually means essentially I render myself powerless or impotent for change. It cannot happen here because it's you, which is why there's so much battle going on also in between, you know, friendships or relationships or other relationships at work, which is that, well, there's nothing I can do. It is for you to change. And I'm taking the positive one, and I'm going to just particularly look at those maybe of us who have got either children or who have children around us, that we can practice this on. You know, what happens when I make a statement, oh, you made me feel really happy, you made mummy or daddy feel really happy today, or uncle or whatever. What's going on there? Or with a partner, you made me feel really happy today.
It's in some ways it's conditioning that person to remember the behavior, to be able to repeat it in order that my state is the one that I prefer to be in.
Absolutely. Again, I hold you responsible. What happens, especially with a child, if we go, you made mummy, daddy, whatever, feel really happy, and suddenly mummy, daddy don't look happy. Or parent, carer, yeah? Is it my fault? What have I done? I mean, it can be very subtle. I didn't make mummy feel happy. I didn't make you feel happy. It could be in partnerships as well. Oh, my partner's not looking very happy. My boss isn't, my colleague isn't. What have I done? So just notice if you may go into, and that's more the, what have I done? Rather than inquiring what's going on and not taking on automatically that responsibility. But yeah, it can put a huge burden onto a child to be responsible for somebody else's happiness. Yeah. So maybe watch that space. Anyway, so when somebody blames you, let's go back to the negative for something that you made me feel confused, frustrated, you made me do. How do you currently tend to react? And just notice, do you tend to go to rebel? And a strong rebellion would be, okay, well, how do you think you've made me feel for the last year? Marianne is nodding to that one. Do you tend to go?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I was thinking about the words coercion and manipulative, no?
Yeah.
Regarding this.
It's very, absolutely, it is. It's like, I want to feel different, go change, honey. Yeah, get going. Or do you tend to resist? So somebody else, you made me feel like this, and you go, well, I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't. That's more that sort of equilibrium. If you hadn't, I wouldn't. Yeah. So there's a resistance. I'm still not going to take on what you're saying. I'm not going to totally rebuff it. I'm going to come up with something else to put myself into the equation. Or do you tend to resign? That is, you do tend to, for whatever reason of your layers of life that you bring to it, do you tend to go, it must be my doing. There is something I must be doing. There's something I must be able to be, I use the word must here in inverted commas, be able to change for the other person to feel or do differently. So you take on the responsibility. And I'd really kind of go, really notice that. If you are more often in that space where the first thought comes, what have I done? What could I do differently? It will be perpetuating. Because probably you may have noticed you can change and change and change, but the other person is not going to necessarily feel better as a result. And it is a very erosive to self, sense of self. Okay. And the fourth area, so we're still, going down at the moment with the downwording. We'll go into upwording. How can we express these things differently in the way that people can hear and engage? Is that fourth area of you are this or that, or what you think is this or that, or this is right or wrong. So you are, the statement you are in itself is not an issue. I am, you are, we exist. It's in the dots that follow. The moment we fill in these dots, we may be on quite dicey territory. And the same with it is. It is. ... So the kinds of, yeah, what are those statements? You are this or that, or not, or it is this or that. What's happening in that statement?
That you are determined. Somebody put you in a place.
Yeah, somebody is putting you in the place of who you are or what you are or not. Yeah.
It's a fixed truth.
It's fixed. Yeah. It absolutely, if you're that, you're not something else, and it's fixed and it may be permanent. Yeah, it's the labels. Labels have a real tendency to be permanent. They can be useful. I would just generally say they're limiting. Even if they're useful, they're limiting, even if they're positive. Okay, it's some kind of a verdict. I'm just going to play that one again for Mariana because you haven't seen it, and I really like this one. Look at what's coming in. It's a verdict. It's a judgment. Okay, so all of what you're seeing on the slides has been informed by these last 4 years of what people have said, by the way. So it's a verdict of some kind, and the kind of examples would be, you are right, you are wrong, that was illogical, that's really nice, that's the worst piece of work you've done, it's amazing, it's great, it's annoying, you are so independent, you're such a strong person, you are very creative, really boring, etc., etc. So just notice the speaker very clearly at this moment put themselves into that relationship above in order to pass that judgment. So I think it's the one where certainly I feel the hierarchy at the most obvious. Make sense? Yeah. It's presented as a universal truth. Just trying to change my thing here a bit. Yeah, there we are. And sorry, going back. And generally, and I would like to really bring this one up, based on some notion of right or wrong, I know what is right or wrong, and I shall bestow my idea of right or wrong upon you. And I think we've kind of come far enough in general conversation, well, I hear it, where people go, yeah, everybody has their own version of right or wrong. Everybody has their right and their wrong, and that is the right or wrong. That is the yardstick for that person. But my right's righter than yours. I know the ultimate rights. I know the ultimate good or bad. Yeah. And I think that most conflicts, wars, many wars are based on who has the right. Who had the right to the right and wrong? Who knows the ultimate good or bad? Also in relation to work, in relation to art. Yeah. And then underneath these two, or from these two, come therefore deserve or punish. And then I think what we're playing with at the moment is, how does that inform our thinking, habitual thinking, when we hear something, including this presentation, including those of you at the moment on Facebook? To what extent have you been going, oh, I agree with that, I disagree with that? How quickly does agree or disagree kick in? And how much as a result of, where do I stand? Do I stand here or do I stand there? Take a stance, take a position. Where is my position? To what extent might I be missing everything in between? Other versions, gradations, shades? Because so quickly I may jump on to, I agree, I disagree. And then we've got other binary ones, success or failure. So that's what I'm currently really particularly interested in. What can I do in order to actually see more and not jump immediately onto, but I notice leanings towards maybe. Okay, so these are the 4 areas. Question to you here is, do you ever speak like that to yourself? Do you ever say to yourself, I have to, I need to, I must do, I should do? And how successful, how stimulating is it? How motivating is it? How enjoyable? Yeah, you probably do it. But I wonder with how much like, yeah, I can't wait. Okay, so here's an example. I really should do the washing up before I go to bed. Replace it with other words if that's not something you ever say. But if you do, how successful is it? Question. How successful is it? I really should do the washing up, or I should exercise more. How successful?
Well, if you do it, you do it with a feeling of sort of meh. And if you don't do it, you're just giving yourself something to feel guilty about.
Yeah, there you go. That's what people have reported so far. That's why, thank you very much, Jenny. Guilt. So if I should myself into the washing up or into the more exercise or into the eating healthier, it has a high probability of not being successful. I might just not do it at all, in which case at least I've rejected that. Or I do it, I force myself, I should do, I know it's better for me. Somebody says so, the book said so, my partner said so, I'll do it. I'll probably start doing it once or twice and then I lose interest. Or, you know, and then I start feeling guilty about why I shouldn't, how stupid am I to keep doing that? That's into the, I'm so stupid, I keep not doing it. I know what's better for me. So it goes into that kind of dialogue, okay? So, and finally, do you ever use any of these in relation to others? Do you ever tell your partner, your children, your people you work with what you have to do, must do, need to do? The need to is the subtle one. You really need to do this by. And you go, yeah, what? Otherwise what? Yeah. Is there already some kind of subtle implied consequence to it? Yeah. You should, that's the dispensing advice. Maybe just to get them off your back because they've been talking too long and you just want to sort it out for them. I see a smile there from Tamara. Or, well, you made them feel like that. You made them do that. It's your fault. Or you go, you are. Well, this is what you are. This is what you're not. So again, inadvertently, maybe by trying to assist a person in discovering something, actually, you might be putting them into a fixed label or verdict. And then there's, of course, that. The we must, we need to, we have to, unquestioned. We just take it on. Well, of course, yeah, because it's said so. This is what we do. We've been doing it for a long, long, long time, and therefore we carry on doing it. And we just, you know, at what point do we actually question all those things? And then somebody sort of recently said, well, what happens if you just don't do any of those things? It's really interesting at work when we kind of go, well, what happens if we don't? Because interesting enough, suddenly something comes up going, but we want to. If we actually give ourselves permission to go, what happens if I don't write this letter, pick up the phone, finish the application? Do you know what? Actually, I'd have some more freedom. I'll breathe. I don't want to do it. So there's something about re-giving ourselves the license to go yes or no. And then finally, they made me. It's them, it's the society, it's the others, it's the government, it's the council, it's my neighbors, it's all of them, it's somewhere else. Okay? And of course they are. They are really, you know, they are so stupid. God, what a statement. Okay, so this is where we are. And bingo, on time. So the next bit is just a little bit of an invitation here to go. So how can we express any of these things and assist each other and speak in a way that is less limiting, more motivating, more trusting, possibly more inspiring and liberating. So we could upward by checking, what is my intention here in relation to myself and others? Am I trying to force myself or am I inviting myself, as an example? Do I want to enter into conversation with you, with other people, in order to find mutually agreeable outcomes, in order to find new ways of thinking about it, possibly in order to learn something that I don't know yet? What position am I taking right now in relation to you or other people? Do I put myself below, above, or at the same level? We talk a lot about eye level, we talk a lot about non-judgmental, and yet I would say we've been carrying on trying to reach these things by not being on eye level and by being highly judgmental. And once I've worked out my intention and position that I choose to take in relation to other and myself, it will inform an approach, because my approach might be quite different in relation to you than it might have been before. So what could I do? What could you do with these have tos, need tos, and must dos that you may be giving yourself on a regular basis? What might be the first step? Anyone?
Changing them out for could do or would like to do.
Could do, would like to do, and I'm hearing a question mark appearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if we go, well, I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. Nothing happens. No decision is made yet. But like to do, there is something appearing there. And I wonder whether the first thing is maybe, and I'm going to just read that out, is there actually anything we have to do? Feel free to challenge. I would say there is nothing we have to do. It's a really hard one to swallow. Any challenges to that? There is nothing we have to do. There's nothing I have to do. So what people often come up with is breathe. I would say that happens by itself. Eat. Some people go on hunger strikes. I know we don't have to eat. Feed children. Unfortunately, some people don't. Yeah. So all of these things actually, I would say, are choices. So do we have to get out of bed to go to work? Or do we decide? Do we decide to get out of bed to go to work in order to bring in an income? The wage, the fee, the money. Do we need to, or do we decide, and do we choose to exercise, eat, work, pay bills? Not everybody does. My dad didn't want to pay bills, and so therefore things kept getting cut off. We would be thrown out and moved from one place to another. Do we, need to, do we decide and choose to apply for funding, file a report, do the homework, rob a bank, walk the dog, meet friends, have a conversation, send emails, pick up the phone, turn up, get drunk, take a break, and so on and so on? And that would be really leading to the question mark that Samara was implied in your want to. Do I actually want to do this? And if want is already too much, because it doesn't quite fit the bins and the cleaning, am I prepared to? Am I prepared to or willing to file the report, clean the bins, tidy up, do the washing up, yeah? Pick up the phone, see my parents, etc. Or is it that actually I like to? I would actually like to do that. I want to do it. In fact, you know what? I love to. I can't wait to. And I think if we open that up, I wonder what would happen to actually go, do you know what? I really like writing funding applications. Because actually, it's an opportunity for me to articulate and to take further the thinking of what I have in mind onto paper or whatever I do it on. And I may well get some funding and money towards realizing it. So it can really change the sort of whole relationship we have to funding applications and accountancy and the end of year accounts and so on and so on. Yeah. All of them are underpinned by choice. And I would say that choice was already taken at any point when we do something. even if we say we need to. There is always choice. But if I, like my friend of mine said, if I live out of have to, it's externalized. I do it because of an external voice. Which voice am I responding to? And if I do it out of I've chosen to, or I just do it, I'm going to do it, then I've internalized and recognized my choice in it. There was a question, Raquel?
Yes, because I'm not sure about that, because if you have a reaction that your body or yourself is saying I don't like it, doesn't matter that I say, oh, I love it, but I'm not loving it.
No, well then don't say that. That would be a lie. That would be so inauthentic, which is why you've got, actually, no, I don't love it. Am I prepared to do it? It's not something I really like. There are consequences. I don't want those. Actually, am I okay with the consequences? Maybe I am. Let's explore them. If I go, no, actually, I don't want the consequences of my child staying overnight in nursery. I don't really want to go out in the rain. I'm prepared to go out in the rain. Okay, I'm using that just came up as an example. It'll be more subtle than that, probably. But, actually, yes, I am prepared to do it. I don't like finishing reports. I mean, that might be something that is very true for me. I really don't. I like starting. I don't like finishing. Am I willing and prepared to do it? Actually, I am, because I would like to provide it for you so that you can get on with your piece of work. It's not something I particularly look forward to. I'm willing to, yeah. I don't want the consequences either for myself or for you. So I'm willing. I'm not forcing myself. Because if it is problematic enough and I don't agree with the action anymore, and I think this is crucial, can I go, do you know what, to myself, do you know what, there's something not healthy. I don't agree with us working in that way or living or being in that way. I actually want to say no. Maybe I'm overloaded. Maybe there's already so much I'm doing and I'm realizing that my mental or physical health is at risk. And I think it's more authentic if I go, I'm really struggling. I would like to go, no, I don't want to do it. Is there someone else who could take it on? Or I might go, you know what, I don't agree. I think I really would like us to actually think of what we're agreeing to here in the way we're working. And I think what happens with that is that the voice to go to challenge things that want to be challenged actually has more safety. I think we become stronger at going, no, that's enough. No more. Yeah. Mariana, you're nodding to that, rather than just going along with something because this is how we've always done it. And therefore we have to, go on.
Yeah, I was thinking, I'm taking notes because I have some thoughts on all the verbs. I think I was thinking that this transcends languages and idiosyncrasies. So I was hung up on the thing of the advice, and I was thinking how we as a humanity are trained to be very discreet, kind of have good manners, and that has made for language to become a limit, no? So I was thinking about, and also to ask all of you, is there a possibility for a language that is of and for vulnerability? I think that's a huge thing. You were enunciating, like, why is it so hard to say, I don't agree, this makes me feel this or that, and I don't want to do, mostly the don'ts, like the I don't feel like. So I'm thinking about this, is there a possibility for a language to increase, to become more
I think so, yeah.
vulnerable?
I think so, and I think we're going into exactly those two areas now, so I'm really glad you've brought those up. I think the vulnerability, the second bit you've said, how can we express something maybe more than we might have been doing? And I think what has been stopping us is the way we know how to say it generally gets that rebellion or reaction rather than an engagement. So often we don't say it because it's pointless, or it might just get the other person angry. So there's fear involved. And I think just going to the first bit, you were talking about advice, and just in terms of time, I'm just going to show you rather than take you through that, something we could replace advice with. And I don't mean sharing information or knowledge. Let's please separate that. Of course, please let's share knowledge and information if we have it. If somebody asks, oh, where could I get some funding or some da-da-da, please let them know where, rather than, oh, what do you think? You know, so that's not what I'm saying, it's the advice. So we could change advice by asking huge amounts of questions instead. So instead of giving the answer, giving advice, giving the solution, I could ask questions. I could assist you in your rigorous thinking without contaminating it with my own. For me, that is my mantra as a coach and even as a friend. How can I assist your thinking? And the questions we may ask are an outcome question. So you've just given me your issue, your problem, something, it might not even be a problem, but something that's on your mind. And I'll go, okay, and how would you like it to be in the future? How would you ideally like it to be? I may then go on to, once you've articulated that, what do you already have in place? What's already there? So what we're doing is building up an inventory of what is there rather than an inventory of obstacles. And that's quite different. We tend to ask what's in the way, what's the obstacle, what's not working. Yeah. We might just go into actually what's already there, however small, what you already know, what experiences have you already got there, what are the building blocks, what's already in place, what are the possibilities. And then we might go into creative divergent thinking, which I'm not going to steal from you. I go, so what else could you do? In addition to what you've tried so far or put in place so far, what else could you do? And is there anything else? And I'll just keep going with that question, because you might just go, and you might just get the idea there. If we keep asking that question, and by the way, you can do this by yourself as well. And is there anything else? Do you keep diverging? And I might even ask a little sneaky one, which is, and what would someone you highly respect suggest? Which means you're going to pick that trusted friend or person of wisdom. You're going to give yourself advice by going, what would a trusted friend, someone you highly respect? It's a really nice one to unlimit our, well, I'm not really as wise, but so-and-so is, so what would they suggest? And you go, well, they would suggest da-da-da, and you go, oh, so you've just got it, yeah? So it's a nice one. And then if you have got somewhere out of all that, what will you do? And that's just a fairly sort of, based on the GROW model, coaching approach to assist someone's thinking. And I think rather than having this just something that experts do, that we pay a lot of money for, what happens if we all just did that ourselves? And then people like mine could gradually become obsolete.
Yeah, that was my point, actually.
Thank you.
Not that I didn't understand, but that was actually my point. How
so we stop running to experts.
Yeah,
we can all be much more expert because we know this. We know how we, respond. So I think it would be great if this stuff is sort of demystified, and the simple versions can be there. And then of course, I'll probably still have a job because of some additional things I know, and I'm not taking away those jobs from everybody, but I think we can do a lot more ourselves. And then relating to that, Marianne, I'm nearly at the end, so we have a bit more time for question and response. How do you express your feeling of something to someone in a way they can hear it and choose to engage in the conversation? So we may find a mutually agreeable way forward or another way. So instead of going, you made me furious, what can we do with that statement?
I would ask, what is actually bothering you? Can you name it?
Sure. If you're the one that wants to say to somebody about your anger or your confusion, and the sentence, well, you made me feel really confused, that's the habit. And you're probably going to get either rebellion, resistance, or resignation. They might, worse go, oh, I'm really, really sorry, I'm to blame. Or they might go, sorry, Marianne, what do you think you've made me feel? So it's not going to go into conversation. So how could you say to somebody what you feel without that response? Any thoughts?
I think it's taking ownership of the emotion, saying, you know, I feel angry because of X.
Yeah, it's literally taking the word make out of it. And I don't know how it plays out in other language, but it's the word and it's the intention. It's always the intention that drives it. I'm playing around with words here because the words have a high probability of being heard like that. But it's really the intention. Yeah, it's the intention also and the must. God, I saw this film yesterday. You really must see it. The word is no longer a demand. I'm actually inviting you because I'm so excited. Yeah, it's the tone and it's the intention that drives the tone and the position. The word just has a high probability. So I'll literally take it out. I might just go, you know what? I felt really furious. Like Tamara, you said, when I noticed you leave the room while I was talking to you. There's still something else in the statement that's missing, I would say. Something that is missing. This statement is about I felt furious when I noticed you leave the room while I'm talking to you. And this comes from NVC, yeah, nonviolent communication. So I'm owning it. But there's something missing, I would say.
Not very solution focused or future focused.
Not yet, because I'm still here on my own with my statement. So there's a step before we can go into solution. So if I say to you, Steve, I felt furious when I noticed you leave the room while I was talking to you, it's about me.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think this is where often we land it on someone and we're leaving the other person out of the equation, which means that actually I'm going to find this, I'm going to now go into solution focus, but I haven't yet taken an interest in you. I feel that's the bit that's missing. What went on for you when you left the room? And that question means I am curious, I'm interested, I trust something happened for you to leave the room. I don't think you're just a bad person or you did that to annoy me. I'm trusting something went on and you might just go, you know what, I felt sick and I was about to throw up and I left the room before I would do that. Or I got a text, there was an emergency. So there is an opportunity for you to share that.
Are you purposefully avoiding the why question? Why did you leave the room?
Why did you leave the room, Steve?
Because I didn't want to hear your voice anymore.
Okay, great. So we're really in a conversation now, aren't we? So if I go why, you will go into some kind of a reaction and it will be a sharp one. I didn't want to hear your voice anymore. And maybe that is what wants to be heard by me. We're not going to get into that conversation because I'll just go, well, if you don't want to hear my voice, sorry, that's the end of our friendship. Yeah, we're just going to go into combat. The why has such a high probability of inspiring either justification or explanation or another rebuffal going, there's nothing to do with it. Who are you to ask me that? It's very interrogative. Not for everybody, for many, yeah? So what went on for you is more of an invitation. Or what went on? What happened? What happened? I'm curious. And it is about being curious, not interrogative. That's why it's so important to check my position. So I'm moving from cause effect to response to your stimulus. Yes, there is a stimulus, there is a trigger, I have a response, I let you know. My intention is, can we find a mutually agreeable solution if that happens again? So if you get a call again in the middle of a conversation, how can we either of us flag up that we're actually leaving? You know, maybe we'll make a sign or maybe we'll leave a little post-it or going, I want a break. And we can actually ask for, I want a break, rather than running off, yeah? So I'm moving from being furious with Q, to being curious because I trust there's something that went on for you. I just don't know yet. And finally, your universal truth, we might just turn them into what they really are, which is personal experiences, personal preferences. They are current, they could change, they are opinions. At this moment, it might be that I saw, I heard, I noticed this and the other, rather than it is. Yeah. I might just express myself, I really liked that film, or I didn't enjoy that film, rather than, well, that was a great piece of work. No, it wasn't. It was really awful. No, I think it was great because da 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 da. No, I think it was awful because, and we just stand still and play. What did somebody call it? Table tennis. It goes back and forth. We're not moving because I'm going to be convincing you of why the film was bad, and I'm going to convince you why it was the best piece ever. And then we could just go, well, actually, I didn't enjoy it at all. Which is much more like, I'm going to go, oh, say more. What is it you didn't enjoy about it? Because it's open, much more open than this verdict. Right now, I prefer this view or that. Right now, I prefer to, I don't know, agree with the governmental rules or not agree with the government rules. In my current opinion, or my current opinion is, I think current is useful, therefore it can change. And from my view as, I'm noticing an absence of or a presence of. And I think all of these things facilitate us to enter into conversation. And when we enter conversation, we can find common ground. We will find more likely to find common ground. That means we're likely to explore something, to possibly co-create and co-shift this world into one that works for all. That's a big statement, but yeah.
You mentioned earlier about you are potentially being problematic irrespective of whether you were saying something that's could be perceived as positive or negative. So, for example, saying, you know, you are amazing. And I kind of wondered at that point what the issues might be around that.
Yeah.
Is it related, for example, to that pressure of someone then having to live up to that? And how would you temper that? If you're saying that maybe it's about expressing an opinion, then would it be okay to say, I think you're amazing? Or is that just...
That's really sneaky, yeah, because one is the pressure. If I say to you, if a number of people say to you, so amazing, or you are just such an amazing singer, at worst, it can stop you singing, it can stop people singing. Because the pressure is so high to sing with this kind of perfection and amazingness, or even the statement, you sing like an angel. I know I've heard of people who've just stopped. Also, it puts you on a pedestal from which you will fall at some point, because somebody might be better, somebody will overtake. It's a lot of pressure to stay up there. And the other thing is often we don't believe it anymore. Oh, you only say that because you're my friend, or because you're my parent, or you want to prep me up. We don't believe it anymore. And actually, it's vacuous. In a way, okay, that was a real evaluative statement, so I'll take that one back, because I've just said it is really, that could be really vacuous, but it doesn't have detail, is what I mean. What is it about this amazing you think I do or am? What is it, the specific? So could we possibly give acknowledgement and appreciation by being specific? I really enjoy the tone that you bring to your singing, that you brought to your singing yesterday. I really enjoyed the tone. Or, oh, I felt really tingly when I heard you recite the poem. I felt, not it made me feel, I felt really inspired, or I felt really warm, or thank you for bringing the report in as we agreed on, I don't know, Thursday, 3 o'clock. That really assisted me in making the next move and the next step, and rather than going, that was great, well done. Yeah. So I think if we take a little bit of time with children in particular, wow, you counted all the way to 10 in one go, rather than you're great at maths. Because the moment the child doesn't hear you're great, what have I done wrong? Have I done something wrong? Because also the you are amazing needs repeat. When we don't get the you're amazing, we suddenly wonder why hasn't it come? When we don't get the gold star, how come I've not got a gold star? Yeah. So I thank you, Tamara, for that question. It's exactly in here. I really liked, I enjoyed, I appreciate it in particular. Yeah. Okay. So this is the end. We can turn command and advice and judgment, universal truth, into choice. Just retaking choice, or re-noticing that we're actually taking choice all the time anyway. And rather than blaming somebody else for action, is going, actually, I chose to do that. I did that. Yes, I did that. And actually, I can change that also. I may then not need to defend it quite so much, or to feel I want to defend an action, because I go, yeah, I did that, didn't sit well with me, I'm going to do it differently. Especially comes in on parenting as well. Advice to assisting. Judgment into, I'm curious, I'm not judging or giving you the blame, I'm actually curious at what went on for you, and I'd like us to move on together forward, and the universal truths become personal beliefs. And therefore there would be more a sense of the freedom, equality would be less challenged, and therefore there would be more of it, and it would be more colorful. So this is a lovely picture, and we might feel more safe, a lot more safe, to be able to say things, because we'd have the means to say it in a way that actually means we are interested in other, and we might suspend some disbelief, and we're not going into polarized. So it is all based, I would say, on intention, position, and approach. The words are the manifestations of that. The language is manifestation. And I think we can really begin to shift it from that authoritarian, hierarchical, superiority-driven approach, which is coercive and requires obedience, to one that let go of that. And I think we're going to struggle if we continue to teach our children to obey. If we teach the next generation to continue to obey to me because I'm older, bigger, stronger, or have a different position to you, then we can't be surprised when people go, I just followed orders. I just followed orders. Yeah. So this is the sort of full one. You can take a picture of it if you like. We've got the Y in there, we've got can't, we've got the word but moving to and as well. So this is a kind of pretty much the whole palette, of which we've just dealt with 5 or 6 of them. And I would say upwording can lift our thinking quickly towards facilitating a collective reimagining of what else could be possible, to action towards more satisfied, invigorated, and sustainable interactions and relationships, family lives, workplaces, societies, cultures, towards a more desirable world for all, and also towards a world that actually will exist for all. Yeah. So, you know, share on. And I think Jenny will provide some links. So are there any final thoughts or questions? I think we can go a few minutes over. We started a little late from what I understand.
There's a question came up when you were talking about choice.
Mm-hmm.
On the Upwording Facebook page from someone who's asking, is there a difficulty here though when a person experiences perceived or limited choice, for example, because of fear of consequence or social inequality?
Yeah, thank you for that. Really glad you asked that. It's the one of the probably a few bits that I forgot and go, oh, why didn't I? So I'll offer this a quote from Viktor Frankl actually on that one, which is, yes, we may be in circumstances, and some people often, where we may have little or no control over what happens to us. And as Viktor Frankl says, in those situations, we can always choose how we respond. So the absolute minimum might be in how do I choose to respond to that situation? And I'm going to, therefore, I can make myself some room. I can keep feeding or nurturing a sense of choice and autonomy when it really gets to that limitation. I think the next layer out is I perceive I have no choice. The consequences are too great, that there could be danger. Let's explore it though. Let's explore first. What would happen if I stop continuing to do this? What really is the consequence there? And is there something I can do to lessen those consequences? Can I go somewhere else? Could I exit in a different way in this situation? Could I find some kind of support or protection? So what are the options in order to maneuver myself out of this situation so that the impact of the consequences can be some that are tolerable, and more than tolerable, are safe enough for me to either stop something or do something different. I hope that assists. Yeah, so start making some room where possible.
I think for me, that's one of the reasons why Upwording allies to the work that I'm trying to develop around consent culture, because I often find myself saying consent is very much about agency. It is about choice. And even if your choice is between a rock and a hard place, there's still a choice to be made. And we all have some agency. And that's something we can grow.
Yeah.
But that's not to dismiss the structural privileges that some people have and others don't, and those are significant, of course.
They are significant, and I think it may not then be on our own, and are there others, and where can we go for assistance or help? And I think just that little bit of room of going, rather than going, okay, there's really nothing I can do, is to go, is there something? And it will be in that little bit of response. And the response may just be in the thinking, how am I thinking about this? I mean, Viktor Frankl said the way he did that is he chose to develop compassion for his perpetrators. That's a really big ask when you're in a concentration camp. Mm-hmm. But it seemed that therefore, and he wrote a lot of books around that with logotherapy, survived, I mean, he's one of the survivors, much more psychologically intact, you know, by creating that some kind of a compassionate understanding that people that were doing to what they were doing by themselves also had, if they don't follow the orders, there would be consequences of lives to themselves and their families. So I think we can always go somewhere in some direction to give some space to something that gives us the space to a feeling that may not be totally, but like, okay, I've got some room here. Yeah, I think that's that. Any other final questions? Final question one, maybe one. And if not, I'll finish on, can I finish on a little paragraph?
Yes, and then I'll just wind up for the website.
Thank you. So I invite you to imagine what would happen. What would happen if we ceased promoting obedience, in particular teaching our children to obey, to authority, and trust that we and they can make conscious, responsible choices mindful of others? What would happen if we choose to leave behind dualistic binary polarizations of right or wrong, good or bad, ideas of normal, and position our subjective preference as objective truth? What would happen if we stop that? And instead make room for variety, multiplicity, shades, and become more comfortable with ambiguity, with new to me and not knowing yet? And what could happen if no one would blame anyone for anything? What would we do instead? I'm not saying that there are not people responsible for things. That's not. But if the focus isn't on finding blame, we have a real strong blame culture. If we don't go, well, it's their fault, the blame sits here, the blame sits there, what would we do with that focus instead? And could it maybe become more about preventing and about understanding in order to prevent? And finally, if we just took more responsibility for our own actions and decisions and feelings, and if we started to respond instead of reacting, if we responded instead of reacted. And I think I'd just like to leave it there and invite people to engage by going on upwording.com and make some contact, and on Instagram and on Facebook, and ask questions. And please ask some rigorous, challenging questions so we can develop this together further. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Rivca. I'm going to just close the session as well by saying thank you to Rivca and to the other people who have taken part today and contributed how they have, both on this Zoom call and on the Facebook groups that have been watching live. If you would like to continue this conversation in the context of the Consent Festival, next Friday at 2 p.m. UK time, we will be sharing for the first time Words Change Worlds 2, which is a conversation between Rivca, myself, and some other people who have been exploring the territory of upwording for some time now, exploring what happens when we enter into dialogue with people who think and feel differently from us, and how we get into the territory of things like disagreement and being not like-minded, and what that means to us. So that's next Friday at 2 o'clock as part of the Consent Festival. And do enjoy the rest of the Festival of Consent, which is at IDoConsent.org. And thanks for watching.
Thank you for partaking, everybody here and everybody over there.
Just ended the live video there, and I'm just stopping the recording.
See you soon in practice.